Okay, this week we're going to talk about Chapter 4, which covers administrative regulations and also our rulings. And we're going to first, in this chapter, they first go through the different types of regulations. So they talk about proposed regulations, which have a 30-day comment period and do not carry the full force of law. Then they talk about final regulations, and these are regulations which are issued under the general authority of the Internal Revenue Service. And then they talk about temporary regulations, and these regulations are issued in response to congressional or judicial change and provide immediate guidance. The second part of the chapter also talks about revenue rulings. And so for revenue rulings, they're second in importance to regulations. So they do not have the full force and effect of regulations. So they're kind of further down on our scale when we're talking about administrative rulings. Revenue rulings are structured to include issues, facts, law and analysis, and the holdings. After revenue rulings, the book discusses revenue procedures. And revenue procedures deal with IRS internal practice and procedures in administering tax law. Then the book finishes the discussion with a variety of different pronouncements. They talk about letter rulings, and letter rulings are private letter rulings that are issued by the IRS office in response to taxpayers' requests on specific tax issues. The last part of the chapter goes through the discussion of different IRS announcements. It talks about a variety of different announcements, such as internal revenue bulletins, chief counsel memorandums, and miscellaneous publications. So in this chapter, the first homework assignment that you'll do in this chapter asks for you to do some looking up of different regulations, making sure that you can use the RIA checkpoint. The second assignment that you'll do for this chapter is you're going to write a research case. And so I'm going to walk you through an example of how to complete a research case. We are going to look at research case number 93 in the textbook. Okay, perfect. So this is my solution to research case number 93. Again, research case number 93 is the one that we're going to use as a review. So I'll just take a moment. This is in chapter 4. I'll just take a moment and read the facts to you. So it says, Alpine Corporation is a qualified small business corporation eligible to elect S corporation status. Albert is a shareholder in Alpine. On February 1st of the current year, Albert dies before signing the proper S corporation election form. The stock passes to Albert's estate. Ellen is appointed executor of Albert's estate on May 1st of the current year. On March 10th of the current year, Alpine filed Form 2553, the election form to be an S corporation, properly signed by all March 10th shareholders and Ellen, the executor, on behalf of Albert. Is this a valid S corporation election? Prepare in good form a research memorandum to the file. Okay, so a research memorandum always contains these specific areas. You can find an example of this, of the format of a research memorandum in Chapter 11 of the textbook. Chapter 11 is the chapter that deals with communicating research facts. So the first part of a research memorandum is simply going to be a restatement of the relevant facts. Now notice here that basically I just rewrote the information that was in the book. And that's fine if you want to do that. That's not a problem at all. Then the next part of a research memorandum lists out the specific issue. And so I just listed the issue here. Is this a valid S corporation election? The last part of the research memorandum is where we list our conclusion and also the support that we found for our conclusion. So now let me show you how we use RIA to get to our solution. Okay, so here I am in RIA. Again, we're dealing with Chapter 4 here. So Chapter 4 discusses administrative rulings and also administrative regulations and rulings. And so in your research solution, we're going to keep our findings to primary sources, and this is the only area that we're going to need to research. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start off by looking at my Internal Revenue Code. So we'll open this up. Come on, RA. There we go. So we'll look at Internal Revenue Code. And I also want to look at my regulations. And then I think I'll go down and I'll also come down here to IRS rulings. And I believe that I'll just get started by looking at revenue rulings. Now, I just choose these 3 areas to begin with to see if I can get an answer by just looking at these 3 areas. In your homework, you might not be able to get an answer by just looking at these 3 areas. You might, for example, need to go into the letter ruling area and look for the answer for the homework. That's a hint right there. Okay, so remember that we're looking for our different areas. Oh, I didn't mean to do Internal Revenue Code history. I meant to do Internal Revenue Code. We're looking for the areas that relate to this chapter, administrative regulations and rulings. Okay, so now that I've selected the source material that I want to search, now I'm going to type in my terms. So we're looking to decide about an S corporation election. And so I'm going to pull that up, and then specifically I want to deal with an S corporation election that deals with the executor making the decision. So I'm going to do S corporation election and executor. So I'll hit search, and then it came back with a variety of different materials. And so I've already gone through and have read this material. And after reading the material, I have found that my answer is actually in the revenue rulings. So again, you'll have to go through and read through the material that you find. That's why you don't want to do too big of a search, because you'll need to read to determine if it applies or not. So this is the one that it actually applies to. It's pretty apparent once I found it, because when I open up this document, you'll see what the title says. We'll just wait for it to load. Notice what the title says: Shareholders Executor may consent to post-mortem subchapter S election. Well, that sounds pretty like a definite answer to me. So I would just read through here and just verify that there's not any weird facts that are different than my situation, which there's not. And so this is a good citation for me to use. So I'm going to cite Revenue Ruling 9282 as my authoritative reference on this case. So now I'll go back to my Word document. And in my Word document, you can see in the conclusion section, I said, yes, this is a valid S corporation election. And notice you don't really have to say anything further than that at this point in time. All of your writing is going to be down in this support section. This is where I go through and I talk about the revenue ruling that I found. I also found a couple more revenue rulings that help support the issue a little further, just to make sure that I've provided enough support. And then at the bottom, I'll list my name so that anyone reading this research memo will know who prepared it. Okay, excellent. That's how we do a research memorandum. If you have any questions, as always, don't forget to post them to the discussion board.